Hi Queens, Sam here. In today's video, I want to talk about emergency fund. And I know some people are like, emergency fund, it's not really sexy as a name, but it's so important. It's so important, especially when we're talking about building wealth. And that's what we're talking about on this channel. We're talking about stepping into our power. We're talking about taking charges of our finances, and we're talking about creating options for ourselves through building wealth. So today I'm going to be talking about that. So an emergency fund, it's essentially a pile of cash that you have on the side to help you for any unforeseen situation that you may have. Again, the most common term is emergency fund, but you can call that fund any name that you want, any name that actually resonates the most with you. I personally call it life-saving fund because it's really there for, again, anything that I might not see, already forecast for in my budget, so then I have that money there to help me with it. So you can call it, again, life-saving fund, you can call it opportunity fund, you can call it any name that you want, but I'm going to be using the term emergency fund here because that's the most common term that probably people will know about. So how do you go about putting in place your emergency fund? First of all, you need to determine how much you want to put in that account. Some people will decide to put 3 months worth of living expenses. Some people will go all the way to 1 year or even more. It all depends on you and how comfortable you are. It also depends on what you're doing for work. If you're doing, like, if you're in a profession that you feel like you can find job really easily, maybe you will be like, okay, I just want 3 months worth of living expenses in my emergency fund because in case you lose your job, you can turn around and within a couple of weeks or maybe a month find another job. But if you are in a profession where it's more difficult to find job, if you were to lose your current job, or that you have family member that actually depend on your responsibilities, you might want to go a bit longer, like more in terms of your emergency fund. So maybe go for like 6 months, 9 months to 12 months in terms of your living expenses, worth of living expenses that you want to have in your emergency fund. So there is no one size fits all. So that's where it's important to take advice, but you really need to sit and do your own homework, your own due diligence, and see what are you comfortable with, essentially. And in any case, even if you decide to have 12-month worth of living expenses, you still have to start with 1 month and then 3 months. So the most important thing here is to start. So once you determine how much exactly you want in your emergency fund, then the best thing to do is really to automate the payment. So you decide which frequency that you want the payment to go in your emergency fund, and then how much. So of course, the how much will depend again on your income and on your everyday expenses. So once everything that you have to pay for has been paid for, like housing, transportation, and groceries, all of those things. However, I will strongly caution you to not leave your emergency fund, the money that you're going to be putting in your emergency fund after non-discretionary, actually after discretionary expenses. So the thing that I call discretionary expenses are things that really you do not need, and those don't go in your living expenses. So your living expenses are really the core expenses that in any case, you do not have a choice, you have to pay for. So housing, again, housing, transportation, groceries, any medical bills, or if you have to pay for school, university, all of those things. But like anything that is actually discretionary, like eating out or shopping for clothing or traveling, those are discretionary. Even your haircut, and I know haircut, like, our hair is very important for us black women, but even your hair. Like, I've had times where I literally delay doing my hair for like 3 months, and people will be like, what? But yeah, because I was just like, this is not the most important thing for me right now. There are other things that are important. So I'll just delay essentially my doing my hair. And yeah, it might not look as great toward the end, but we find ways. You do a little wrap here, you just find another way to work your hair until you get you get a chance to do your hair. So hairstyle and all of those things, they're not important. They do not go in your core living expenses, and that should not be accounted for really in your emergency fund. That also means that essentially for you to go take the money from your emergency fund, it has to be for something that is very important. So you don't want to go and get the money from your emergency fund for traveling, or to go on a shopping spree, or anything that really it's not as important. You want to keep that money for things that are really important, that needs to be paid in case something happens to your income and you need a bit of a time to turn around back on your feet again. So automating your expenses is very important, because one thing that we do not want to do is essentially leaving it to ourselves to do it manually. We may do it the first few months, but chances are eventually we will forget. Something else will have to be paid, and we'll be like, let me put that money into that thing instead of putting in my emergency fund. But when you put it automated, it's a way also of paying yourself first. So in any case, that payment will go through. You know it will go through, and you already budget for it. So it's like any other expense that you have, like your electricity bill, your gas bill, like your groceries. So it will go through each month, or every 2 weeks, whichever frequency you choose. So another thing for your emergency fund is that you want to put it in an account that is safe and not really accessible to you. So let me explain that. Safe meaning that essentially one thing we do not want to do is putting our emergency fund into the stock market. Nothing wrong with the stock market, but essentially money we put in the stock market has to be is something that is actually for long term. And your emergency fund is more for short term needs. So you don't want to take a chance of putting that money into the stock market, and like the markets we're having these days where everything is just falling apart, then you're seeing that money just like going down, and you're like, oh my god, this is actually money that I'm relying on if something was to happen. So you want to put it in a safe account, and a safe account usually will be a savings account. Granted, the interest rate in the savings account these days is ridiculous, but we're not putting the money in the savings account to make money from it. We're putting the money, our emergency fund, in the savings account to make sure that when we need it, we'll turn around and that money will be there for us. So you want to put it in a safe place. That's what I mean by safe. And then you want to put it in a place that is not easily accessible to you. That means that's not an account. It has to be an account that you cannot just be like, oh, I need $100, oh, I need $200, and just you just go and take it. You have to put it in an account where it takes a bit of work for you to do it. So an example of that could be you open that savings account in a bank that is really not, they don't have, that bank doesn't have that many um, branches or bank machines in your area. They don't have online banking, or like you have to pay a fee to withdraw the money from the savings account. So putting those hurdles when between you and that specific savings account, that specific emergency fund, will help you to be more intentional when time comes for you to go and take the money from that account. So, I know it's not easy. Everybody wants to have access to all of their money at all times. But for your emergency fund, and also to kind of like protect ourselves from ourselves, it's good to put it really in an account that is not easily accessible to you. So there you have it. Those are like, few steps that I'm hoping you will consider when it comes time to put your emergency fund in place. And the last thing that I will mention here for the emergency fund is like when time comes for you to use the money, there is no guilt for you to go and use that money, because that money is there for that. So if you need it for groceries, for transportation, for housing, you go and you get the money from there during the time that you need it. And then when you're back on your feet, then you just go and you replenish your emergency fund again. So quickly, I'm just gonna do a recap again of those steps, and I'll put also the list of the steps in the description below. So make sure to look at the list just to remember those steps. The first one, determine how much you need for your living expenses. And then the second one, you want to automate your expenses. The third one, you want to make sure to put it in an account that is safe and secure. And the fourth one is use that money. Use it. I know sometimes for us black women, we like to save. And then when times come to use it for something like, oh my God, use the money when you actually need it. But make sure to replenish your emergency fund after that. There you have it. So if this was of any value for you, just make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell for the next video that I'll be sharing with you. And also share with your network. Maybe some people in your network, black women, or also on this journey of building wealth. Share it with them as well. And leave a comment below because I'm interested to know, do you have an emergency fund right now? And if you don't have an emergency fund, why don't you have an emergency fund in place? And maybe that could inspire me to do more video that will bring more value to you. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a good day.